Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel, The Filmsmith. As the name might suggest, what I'm here to talk about is, well, film. The main series that I will be working on for the time being is The Great Unmade. In it, I'll be covering the history of many movies that, for one reason or another, were never made. I'm willing to bet that a lot of movie fans have heard of a few of these films. Among the most famous would be Stanley Kubrick's Napoleon, Paul Verhoeven's Crusade, and Orson Welles' Don Quixote. While these projects are all some of the greatest what-ifs in cinematic history, they aren't the ones that I want to explore here. The movies I've just mentioned have been talked about countless times before on other channels. A few of these films have even been the subject of feature-length documentaries, such as Jodorowsky's Dune and The Death of Superman Lives, so there's people who've done this on a professional level. In my opinion though, there wouldn't be much point in simply reciting information from those sources. Now, a question that some of you might have about The Great Unmade is, why talk about these projects? After all, you won't be seeing them on the big screen, or at home anytime soon. Or ever for most of them. Well, here's one. The stories behind these projects can often be just as, if not more interesting than the films that are made. Take the aforementioned Superman Lives, for example. The project went through several different versions, and there was constant strife between screenwriter Kevin Smith, director Tim Burton, and producer John Peters, who by the way didn't even really like Superman. There were arguments over who would play Superman, they decided on Nicolas Cage, and Peters had an enormous list of demands. Now, what would Peters demand of the film? Well, Superman cannot fly, he doesn't wear a signature costume, a polar bear and space dog are absolutely needed, and Superman just has to fight a giant spider in the finale, otherwise the film would be a bomb. And wouldn't you know it that just before it was to start filming, the project was cancelled, and thus, the world was deprived of one of the strangest superhero flicks that was ever conceived. You also might have heard of Casablanca 2, Brazzaville. The follow-up would have had Rick and Captain Renault working for the resistance in the German-occupied city. They would even reteam with a widowed Ilsa. Here's a list of reasons why that would have been a disaster. While some of these films were passion projects, others are so bizarre that you have to wonder what they would have been like had they gone before the cameras. In some cases, the fact that these films were never made had a massive influence on the careers of those involved. There are two examples of this. In the late 1970s, Steven Spielberg was interested in making another science fiction film. However, it wouldn't be just a sequel to Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Instead, he was going to venture into the horror genre once more. The project was known as Night Skies, a tribute to the 50s science fiction film The Thing from Another World. Pre-production work on Night Skies was extensive. Makeup artist and special effects guru Rick Baker spent several months crafting the look of the aliens for a total of $700,000. A draft of the script was also completed by John Sayles. The story was inspired by the Kelly Hopkinsville encounter, where a family claimed to have been terrorized by aliens. Although the film was never able to progress beyond these stages, the work that had been done would not go to waste. As Spielberg was filming Raiders of the Lost Ark, screenwriter Melissa Matheson read the script for Night Skies and was emotionally moved by it, specifically the relationship between a young boy and a benevolent alien. This idea would become one of Spielberg's most famous films, E.T. There were also films like the Spielberg-produced Poltergeist, Gremlins, Critters, and Signs, which employed similar ideas or used motifs from the unmade Night Skies. On a more negative side, you can get something like Paul Verhoeven's Crusade. Eager to reteam after 1990's Total Recall, Verhoeven and Arnold Schwarzenegger decided to make a project on the first Crusade. The film was cast with many of the major actors of the time, sets were almost finished in Morocco and Spain, and a start date was set for the summer of 1994. However, Carlco, the company funding the project, was growing worried. Crusade's budget had ballooned to over $130 million, which would have made it one of the most expensive films ever made at that time. To make matters worse, Carolco had an equally expensive film in the works. The studio could not afford to fund both of these projects, so a decision needed to be made. When Verhoeven and Schwarzenegger attended one final meeting about the project, Verhoeven apparently had an outburst that ruined any chance of the project being made. He had been asked what guarantees he could make that the film would not grow even more expensive as the production went on. Rather than lie or trying to find another path, Verhoeven was not able to promise anything of the sort. This brutal honesty brought Carolco to cancel Crusade and put all their money into the other project. Unfortunately, the project that they did end up funding was Cutthroat Island, which was regarded as one of the biggest financial flops of all time. As a result, Carolco went bankrupt. As for Verhoeven and Schwarzenegger, Verhoeven made the infamous Showgirls. Despite the initial intrigue of having an NC-17 rating, the film failed to impress audiences and critics. His follow-up, Starship Troopers, fared slightly better, but needed a few years before attaining cult status. Although Verhoeven has made several successful films since, the last Hollywood production he was involved with was 2000's Hollow Man. Schwarzenegger faced a similar series of ups and downs. In exchange for returning his $10 million salary, Schwarzenegger owned the rights to the script and tried to shop it around. However, due to the poor box office returns on his films, Schwarzenegger was unable to find another studio interested in the project. By the early 2000s, Schwarzenegger had gotten too old for the project and began his political career. This is the kind of stuff that I could talk about for hours, and for those interested in these kind of stories, I think you'll find a lot here. I also like to interview at least one person involved with any given project. That way, I give more life to my videos and prevent them from becoming just one long info dump. Will this be the only subject I cover on this channel? Not exactly. I also plan on doing some traditional film reviews and discuss the history of some of my favorite films. And with your help, I might even tackle longer feature projects about the film world. It's going to be a fun film adventure, so I hope you enjoy it with me. Stay tuned.